Hi, I'm Troy Colmer, and welcome to the Freedom Network and our free Become Limitless community that we've just set up. So if you'd like to join that, head over to freedomnetwork.io and I'd love to see you over there. Our mission is to raise the vibration of the earth, and we do that by helping you to get in the best shape of your life, both in mind and body, because the only way that I can see that we can make this world better is by all of us becoming healthy and understand this extreme power that we have in our mind, because the mind controls everything. So that's the whole reason why I'm doing the podcast. That's the whole reason why I'm doing everything, is to try and help as many people as I can. And if you'd like to join our Become Limitless community, totally free, that'd be unreal. And today we've got Pia back again. Hello, Pia.
Hello, good to
Uh,
see you again.
she's fantastic. She always comes kicking and screaming, but I drag her along. She's just got such a wealth of knowledge. And before that, I press this record button. We talk, for half an hour before we start. And I said, we better press record here and get this thing going, because otherwise we'll be talking all day. We talk like we're on the podcast. We get on all these tangents. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about manifesting, and also some world events, and um, it's to help you to be able to make a decision. Like when you see things happening, it's like how to stop and 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 think what's happening in the world in your mind. Because what happens is, when you discover that you have this power in your mind to connect to a higher self or a universal mind or something, the thoughts that come into your mind may not be yours. Uh, they could be another thought form, comes from some. I know it sounds crazy and weird and all these things, but you got to think for a minute. Just stop for a minute and really think, like, where does thought come from? Like, if you think, have a thought comes in, and it just, like, you've never had that thought about something, and then all of a sudden you get a thought or an idea, like, where does it come from? It has to come from somewhere. So yeah, and my thoughts are that I was just talking to P about it before. And my symbol, the center part of the symbol, is the photon. But that photo wasn't actually taken till, I think, 2016 by the thing that I was looking at. But that's been around since the photon shape has been around since the pyramids. It's on the actual pyramids, and all our war medals all use it. Hitler has it on himself. If you have a look at any Hitler photos, he's got it. If you have a look at go to any religious person, they've all got it all on them. If you go to have a look at the crown of the king now, was the queen, now the king, on top of his crown, he has it. The photon, because the photon is light and light is thought. And so they know all this stuff. So I call them the FEB, and I don't want to reveal who the FEB is, because, it's a bit of it's a Troy secret. But anyway, so before I get onto the photon power,
Mhm.
I I'm going to have two people on the podcast. Well, I'm actually going to be on one lady's podcast, and then she will hopefully come on mine. Her name is Louisa from Feel Good Astrology. So reach out to her. She's I've never really got into astrology or anything like that, but with the Become Limitless community, it's on this platform called School, which Sam Ovens does, and she's on that part of that platform. And so I started connecting with her, and then I started watching all the videos, and I'm thinking, it's just like, because I'm so into the computer, like that, into the programming side of it, like all that makes sense to me. That says that it actually that we actually are inside some sort of hologram or
Construct.
something. So that's what the astrology side does to me. But the funny thing is that's happened, right? Is so Louisa, um, I think it might be one day this week I'm going to be on her podcast, which I'll let everybody know. But the other person is Lucy Ellis from Newcastle. She's a hypnotherapist, and she's going to be on my podcast on Saturday. And um, she, I didn't know, but she just got into astrology over the last 3 years. Because I hadn't spoken to her for a while. She actually had a health clinic called Newcastle Health Collective, which I was up there for a while. I was the only man there for a while with all these other ladies, and it was all alternate therapies. And we've when COVID hit, like that, just the business, had to fold. So as a lot of businesses did. But yeah, I was been talking to her, and she started talking about this astrology, and then she started saying about human design, I think it's called, astrology, and then that's to do with the prenatal birth chart. And then talking about Louisa, and she does astrology. That's two people with astrology. And so I'm thinking, Pia, this is my question for you, and you're the manifesting queen, probably more than me. And so I'm just wondering, do you think is there something in it? Because what I believe is if you're told something, say, like when you go to a what are they called? The card people, the tarot people, the what are they called?
They're readers of whatever
Yeah,
kind of.
and then they tell you what your life's going to be or what's been in it. But then because we are all manifestors of our reality, so that just creates a seed, and then we manifest it in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the reason that I didn't want to do a birth chart is because if they told me something, that I would manifest it in. So do you think that's right, P, or do you think then the other thing I was thinking before we answer this question, the other thing I was thinking, what would happen if like you knew your birth chart from young and then you sort of followed what that said? Do you think that your life could be easier? That's the other question.
Okay.
So there's two questions there, Pia.
Um,
On your thoughts. So the first question was, do you think there's something in it for me that I've manifested these two ladies into my life that have got both to do with astrology? And the other
mhm.
question is, if you started to do from when you were born, would your life, if you followed that, could your life be easier in that direction?
Okay. So we'll just do one at a time because I kind of think that they're a little bit different, a lot different. So I guess that's a really interesting thing. Like why things come to you. And they always do come in pairs. It's like, you buy a new car and suddenly you're seeing your car everywhere, right? So you
Yeah.
got astrology on the brain because somebody's talking to you about astrology, and then all of a sudden you're meeting these other astrologers, right?
But
Um,
I didn't know she was, I thought she was, oh, I know she's a hypnotherapist. That's what she does for a job.
yeah.
I didn't know she was into astrology. She only just started talking about it.
Yeah, but the
So
energy of it, right? The
yeah,
frequency of it behind the thoughts, right?
yeah.
Um, so it's an interesting thing because I'm going through this phase where I've just I seem to be attracting a lot of people to me that want to talk about God,
Yeah.
which you know me, right? So that's kind of funny.
It is funny, yes.
and
It'd be
and
like
it,
me attracting someone with God. It just wouldn't be.
yeah, and so I'm having all these conversations around God and religion, and so I said to this last young man that approached me out of the like random, and the first thing out of his mouth, right after I met him, is like, "Do you believe in God?" And I'm like, "Whoa, all right, straight in."
Yeah. No warming up.
And through the course of the conversation, we had a really good chat and stuff, and very lovely man, very intense conversation. And I said to him, just like what you're asking me, I was like, well, I find it really interesting that all these people are coming up and talking to me about God. And he goes, well, maybe that's your spirit or your higher self, or I don't even remember the language you used, coming in and saying, Pia, pay attention. Jesus is real, God is real. And I'm like, maybe. or maybe because they're coming to me, they need to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And so it brings perspective into it, right? And I go, well, events occur and you can make them mean whatever you want to make them mean, right? So it can be as simple as you had astrology on the mind, because in the same way you say, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of a pink elephant, and therefore astrology comes to you. It
But
can
I
be that
didn't have
simple.
to come across Louisa, like I didn't know that that's what she did. Like when you see on the thing, it just has their name, doesn't really say that she's an astrologist until I went into it, and then I found she was.
Yeah, but that's we're talking about things on a frequency level, right?
Yeah. But do you think there's something? Do you think I'm feeling that there's something in it for me? I'm feeling that there's
Well,
some.
then if you feel that there's something in it for you, then there's something in it for
Do you
you.
think do you think there's some sort of message for me that I'm not seeing?
Well, that you just said that that's what you're feeling.
Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking that. I just think, well, two people, or like you said, is it just the car thing where you just see when you buy the car, you manifest that into everyone's got that car.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just going along the track of, you make it mean whatever you make it mean.
Yeah,
So you're saying that this is coming my way, and I tend to do this. It's like things start coming at me,
yeah,
like you're doing now, and I'll go, okay, there's something here for me. I'm gonna pull this thread, and I'm gonna follow it along and see if there's new knowledge, new awareness, shift in perspective. Like, what is this, right?
yeah.
Sometimes it's just have a topic to conversation on your podcast. Right? Like you can make it mean whatever you want. And so, and I know there's a lot of people that believe wholeheartedly in astrology, and a lot of people that think it's BS. And I know that's not the topic of the conversation right now. It's just more like why you're manifesting things into your world. But
yeah, I don't think it's so I think it's do you I have a feeling that it's confirming, because I believe that everything's just a program. Like we're just programmable. Like everything's a program. That's why we're
100%.
able to manifest.
Yeah.
Like if you think about, like, how is it possible? So, like I spoke with one of my other podcasts with Craig, that because I'm adopted, and then things that happen then to manifest, my birth parents into my life. Not my mother. I don't know who my mother is. I've never seen it. I don't know who she is, but my father, my birth father, which I manifested him until 40. But growing up, like I had a big thing. I used to dream about it, because at that time when I was from 0 to 10, say, like my first mother, she was like extremely violent. And so I used to just think about how good it would be to have the other, my birth parents. So I said, being a fantasy land about it, And so what happened was when I met Johnny at TAFE, so I was 17, and then I was just over at his house, and that house that Johnny lived in, and I didn't know Johnny beforehand. I only met Johnny at TAFE, so because I was an electrician. And so that house was my birth father, the exact house that he grew up in. And his sister lived a few doors. Like, how is that even, how can that be possible? Like, not the house next door, not the house in the same suburb, like that, the exact house. So you think, like, how is that? How can that not be if we're not in some sort of program somehow? And
No,
then,
I think we are.
and so that leads me down the other path of astrology, and that all aligns with all the planets and the stars and the asteroids and the moon, and and they do all the lines and all the things on the chart.
Yeah.
And so that, like, if everything is just a program, well, then that would have to become true as well. And so that was the second question. So the first question, we don't really know. We're at a crossroads here because we don't know whether it's meant to be something for me, or I'm just seeing the cars,
Well, I'm just saying, if you feel there's something for you, then there's
Yeah,
something.
well, I don't know. I'm just, I'm like you. I'm trying to look into it and see if there is.
Yeah,
And
feel into it. Yeah.
and so the other question would be, like, if it is real that this, but then I suppose it comes down to interpretation of the chart, though, doesn't it?
And that is something else that needs to be considered. So if you want to talk about being in a construct and everything being a program, right?
Yeah.
Then it stands to reason if we are in a construct, then the planets and the stars and all that kind of stuff, that is just an overlay and not really real, right?
Yeah.
Real here in the construct, it's what we see. But does that actually mean? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
as a program, to use your language, right?
Yeah.
Like as a program, right? And astrology, there's because there's Vedic astrology, there's Western astrology, there's astrocartography, which is the astrology of the planet. Like there's a lot of different
Oh, there's a few different types. I didn't even know. I just
yeah,
thought
yeah, yeah.
astrology was astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
it's the study of the stars and the influence that they have on us,
Yeah.
right? On us and the influence that they have on us, for sure. Some people call it an art, some people call it a science. But the interpretation and how it's expressed, like Vedic astrology, like Western astrology is fixed, implying that the 12 months are fixed and the timelines are fixed and everything changes. Whereas Vedic astrology, it's like changes, it's 2.5 degrees out. So like I'm a Libra in Western, and I'm a Virgo in Vedic.
Oh,
Right?
well, how is
Vedic,
that?
because of how they measure their calendar,
Oh,
right? And so, and then in Vedic astrology, they prioritize the moon and the rising in terms of soul journeys, whereas in Western astrology, we prioritize the sun, which is outward personality, right? So that's a philosophical thing of what you're looking at.
mm.
Right? So yeah, the interpretation, like you said, is huge. And then just going back, I guess, to what is astrology? Like, is it in the program that we're in? Is it just an overlay? And the only thing that gives it power is the fact that there's so many people that believe in it, right? There's a mastermind of however many billions of people that actually believe this astrology is real, and that in and of itself will give it power. Or is the power already there?
The
And that's
chicken
why
or the egg thing.
right, carts and horses, chickens and eggs,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you want to get into, I guess for me, it just depends on where the foundation of your belief systems lie. Like I believe that we're living in a construct. I think, we're ones and zeros. And we touched on this before, right? I can
Yeah.
just borrow in this and then I'm not. And that maybe we look up in the sky and what we see is just a pretty picture, just so that we have, because who wants to see ones and zeros when you look in the sky, right? Like we want to see stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of storylines about how we make life more interesting by making things mean things, which, is what we were talking about before, right? With
Yeah.
when we started, is what do you want to make this mean? Because we're meaning making machines, right? Like, and from the work that you've done, it's just like an event can happen and you can make it mean all kinds of bad stuff, or an event can happen and you can make it mean all kinds of good stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
people that are,
That makes sense.
it's just your perception at the time of something, whether you want to define it as good or bad, or just start seeing things as, events that occur that you navigate. Right. And that's what I was talking about last week about don't touch the sides. It's like, if, all this stuff is going on in the world by the FEBs, as you like to call them. And,
Hey, don't be using my FEB.
and so all this
No, you're
stuff,
welcome to it.
all this stuff is going on in the world, and everybody's saying how bad it is. And I just go, well, it's been bad for decades and centuries. Now you're
Yeah.
just seeing it. It's always been bad. It's just you're having a look at it now. Right.
Mm.
And then, you can change the perspective and say, well, is it bad if we're so far out of alignment with who we are, and nature is so far out of alignment with nature itself, and it needs to right itself, so it's going into a massive detox, and it's actually a good thing because it needs to clean out, right? So, and in detoxing, lots of not so nice things happen, for sure, as we
Yeah.
know.
Well, well, you're right there, because if you detox your body, like the first couple of weeks is terrible.
100%.
Oh, it's yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, but you have to do it to get to the other side,
Yeah.
right? And
It
maybe
could
that's what the
be.
world's doing. Look, I don't want to draw conclusions here, and I'm not saying anything is fixed. It's just a different perspective, right? It's like that old story of the farmer's boy who was out in the fields one day, and I tell the story poorly, so I'll just like do it really short, and cut off his arm in the machine, and all the townspeople came around and go, "Oh my God, your son, he lost his arm. That's so terrible. That's so terrible. I'm so sad for you." And then the war came, and all the other boys were, had to go off to war, and all the town people came around, and all the other farmers were like, "Oh, you're so lucky your son can stay home. You're so lucky your son can stay home," right? That's, and so you don't know if it's good or bad until, God's finished with it, as they
Yeah.
say, right? And so whatever meaning we place on something is going to be, from that perspective and that point of view, the only place you can move forward from, and what you're doing, right? Just like your astrology. Are you going to, it's coming at you from a couple of different sources. All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to look at this. All right,
Yeah.
let's do it, because it's coming out here where other people would just ignore it and say, "Oh, we're astrology, whatever,"
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, yeah, I'm interested to find out what it,
100%.
yeah,
Go
what
play with
it, you know, uh, because it's all, it's all part of the program, I believe.
it.
So because they do the birth chart, and funny thing is Lucia, because I was just talking to her earlier on, and she was saying that this
Mm-hmm.
human design astrology, I think it's called.
Yep.
Sorry, hang on a sec.
I didn't know it's human design astrology. I've just heard of it as human design.
Pardon?
It's human. Yeah. I didn't realize it was an astrology because I hadn't looked into it that much, but
Yeah.
it makes sense
And she
because if
says
you're,
that 4 months before you're born, some design crystal goes into your body before then 4 months later you're born. So you're mid-birth type thing.
yeah, yeah.
And then your soul comes in and then splits in two or something. I don't know.
Did we talk about this
She'll
last
explain it a
time?
lot better when we get on the podcast. But
I want to see that podcast because I'm curious, because I know
yeah,
people.
I'm
I know
curious
I
now
know
to
human
know.
design. I know human design practitioners and stuff, and I had it done years ago, and I didn't put a lot of energy into it, but I have seen their charts and everything.
Yeah.
But that we talked about this last time, Troy, about why astrology starts from the second that you're born, and when you get in that conversation of when do you become, when a person becomes a person, right? So if you're doing an astrology pre-birth, then there's an implication that there's energy there before birth, right?
Well, we did have a big discussion on that,
Yeah, it did come up. I know.
I
Well,
know.
we tried not to have a discussion about it. It was there, and we didn't talk about it,
Yeah.
but
And then I had another discussion with Lucy about it, and she's not on the my wavelength. She's about the the 4 month before thing. And I said, well,
yeah,
how does
because
it?
she's a human design practitioner, right?
Yeah. And I said, well, how does it get in there?
I know. And why 4 months? Because if you look at yogic
Yeah.
philosophy in the Vedas, right, there's that
Well, these are
spark.
good questions. So I'm going to ask her these. I want to say, Pia said.
Okay,
Good. Yeah. So I'll be on. I'll record it on Friday, so it'll be coming out Saturday.
I'm away for the
Yeah, it's
weekend.
going to be very interesting. And
Yeah.
and when I go on with Louise, I might ask her about it as well, and see what she thinks about that.
Yeah, why
Yeah,
4 months?
because it's a weird concept, isn't it? That like you need breath to live. Like without breath, you can't live.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like it sort of makes sense for me that that's how it works. The spirit comes in with the breath and goes out with the breath, and then yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
no.
we've got so we don't know. So we've got two questions and two could be's.
You're not a philosopher, man.
Yeah, we've got to. So we don't really have an answer for both
You
of
want
those
to
two
get
questions.
I'm a philosopher. I like to talk about stuff and let people sit with it and see
Yeah,
what fits in their body. Like I can easily say I think this and that's my reality and impress my opinion upon people. I know how to do that. I would rather not do that. You know what I mean?
and uh, well, yeah, I don't know. So we'll just. I think only time will tell. I think time will tell if it was something for me or not. I don't know. But I'm really Lucy is like, she's a fantastic lady, and she's like a beautiful spirit. And Louise, I haven't met her yet, but I'm got the feeling that she's going to be very nice as well.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you my astrology story if you want to hear
Yes, please.
it. Okay. So it was very similar actually to what you're talking about. So when I was living in Vancouver before moving to Australia, I was not happy, right? Like it wasn't like that I was depressed, because I'm not a depressive person, but I just wasn't enjoying my life. Everything was difficult, right? I was just like, life was hard and I didn't like it. And I had traveled enough to know that life didn't need to be that hard. And I was just like, why is it so hard for me here? And then somebody started talking to me about astrocartography. Now that's the astrology of the planet, right?
Which planet?
And yeah, so the ley lines on the planet and where the energy is in various
On our planet, on Earth.
Yes, on Earth in this
Oh,
realm.
right.
Right,
Sorry.
right. Yeah.
Well,
And
when you say planet, I'm thinking other planets, but I was
no,
forgetting
in this
I was
realm,
forgetting about our planet.
right? In the program.
It's
And
okay. All right, I'm back, Per.
okay, keep up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh, so we had an interesting conversation, and then I just dismissed it, and it was done, right? Yeah, but one of those coffee shop chats, and you forget about it. And then a week later, some random person I was met up with at another coffee shop, at another cafe, started talking about relocation astrology.
Oh.
And I was like, that, and they said, well, astrocartography, and said that they'd gone to this relocation astrologer, which is somebody that looks at your astrology chart and looks at the chart of the planet and sees where you're supported and where you're in opposition to where you're.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And I was like, well, that's a fascinating conversation. Now, keep in mind, this is when I was months away from leaving Vancouver. I'd already decided to leave Vancouver. I just didn't know where I was going.
Yeah.
And then, a couple of weeks later, a third person pops in, again, randomly, different person, different social circle, talking about astrocartography. And I just went, you know what? I got to look at this, right? That's 3 people in 2 weeks, I think it was. And I'm going to look at this. So I went online and I looked at research astrology and astrocartography, and I was just like doing a bunch of stuff. And I found this really wacky website with all this kinds of crazy stuff on it. Terrible website. And I read the whole thing. Everything, every word on that awful website I read. And it was a wordy website. And I booked a reading for Vancouver with this guy, this relocation astrologer.
Off the crappy website.
Off the crappy website.
Just goes to show you, see? I've got hope, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Here you go, it's frequency. And I booked a reading, and I was like, at that time, I think a single location reading was $75 US or something. And then when he started doing relocation stuff, you were in the few hundred. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do a relocation thing. I found this person randomly. He could totally be, right? But I'm going to spend $75 US, right? This is in Canada, so it's still $100, and I'm going to have him read Vancouver for me. And so he read Vancouver for me, and it was only about 25 minutes. And I was blown away. Like, the stuff that he saw in my life in Vancouver, I've never seen tarot readers do, any other astrologer do. No one, he was so bang on accurate for my life in Vancouver. I was floored.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely floored. And he's like, I'm like, how do you know this stuff? He's like, it's in your chart. I'm like, there's a line on a page. What do you mean it's in my chart?
Yeah.
Like, he saw my work situation. He saw my home situation. He saw what types of relationships I was having with men, what work I could only do. And like, he just saw everything. And keep in mind, like, my life in Vancouver wasn't that great. And then he turns around and he says, and it's only going to get worse.
This is what I'm worried about.
And I was like, well, I'm thinking about moving into the interior, into the Okanagan, and 4 hours away. And he did a quick look at it.
It's going to get worse.
he's like,
and am I paying for this?
and he's like, Pia,
oh, shit.
The only thing that you're supported in Vancouver right now is your Jupiter. And he goes, you move to the Okanagan, you're not even going to have that. You're
Oh,
going to be,
wow.
and I went, oh, right. So I immediately gave him however many hundreds of dollars to my relocation astrology, right? I'm like, we're doing this.
It was a great upsell.
Yeah. Right. Now, so like my birth chart is a teeter totter. Like all of my houses are in, or all of my planets are in 5 houses. There's nothing at the sides. Like it's full on teeter totter, right?
What's that mean?
So like they're all opposed. Like when you read your birth chart, right? When you get your chart read, it comes in a circle, and then there's the 12 houses,
Yeah.
and where your planets are, we'll draw
Yeah, all the lines, yeah.
all these geometric lines. So all my lines are pretty much straight up and down.
Yeah, right. Wow. Is that normal?
No.
Oh.
Right. So I've got like nothing in the family house and nothing in the relationship house, and like everything is so
I just can't get over it. And it's going to get a whole lot worse.
so what?
Give me $500.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that much, but yeah, it was close. And so I at that time, right, I had three citizenships, and I was willing to go anywhere. And I said, okay, do a location for me. I paid for 2 locations, and I was like, do a location for me in one of the 3 countries I have passports in, right? And then anywhere in the world, like just send me anywhere. Like I just have to get out of here. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Right. And so he came back, and he actually gave me some of the money back because he couldn't find a second location.
Oh, you're that bad.
Right. He couldn't find a second one. And he's like, well, have you thought about Australia? He's like, have you thought about Australia? And I said, yeah, I've been wanting to move to Australia since I was like 16. He goes, yeah, well, that's all I got for you.
Oh, wow.
And then he proceeded to tell me he told me where in Australia and what the lines were, which he was a little off on, but although that could have been like old energy, whatever. But and then he proceeded, because he interviews you and he asks you what you want, right?
Yeah.
Because people, like it's career, money, children, family, relationship. Like he actually asks you what you want, so he can send you somewhere where you're supported in those areas, right? So you have your interview, and he says, so he's like, well, if you go to Australia, like this is what your life is going to look like, right? And so he spent 25-30 minutes telling me about what my life would be like at Australia, and again reiterated how bad Vancouver was, and and I'm like, great, I'll go. So he gave me, this is in April 2013, and I was ready to give notice, like May 1st, like I was gone. And he goes, no, you can't go until September. I'm like, what? Right?
When was it going to get worse though?
Yeah, right. I didn't even ask. I didn't care. So I had to, like, I stayed there for another 4 months, and he gave me this window of time where he said, go to Australia, and so I booked my ticket, and then I had a follow-up call with him, and I'm like, what's the second date? And he goes, well, that's why you want to be back from. And I'm like, no. I says, I'm not coming back. He's like, what? I says, yeah, no, I'm moving to Australia. He's like, based on what I said, you're not even going to visit first. I'm like, no, I'm moving to Australia. Right? I didn't know soul. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I was like, if 25% of what he said was correct, like it couldn't be worse than Vancouver. Right? And he was so accurate with Vancouver. So I had to wait until September, and I flew exactly when he said, because I figured, I'd spent hundreds of dollars on the guy. I'm going to like follow his lead. And one thing that he said to me, he says, like, careful in November. He says, if you're moving there, be careful in November, because Vancouver's got a hold on you, which is does, because I tried to leave several times and I always went back. And he's like, in November, you're going to want to come back. He says, there's a 3-week period. And he's like, if you can get through that, you'll be smooth sailing. And so sure enough, November 2023 or 2013, rather, 10 years ago when I first came, I'd walk along the beaches on the Gold Coast, and I was just like, that's it. I'm going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. And I'm so glad he gave me the warning, because then it was gone in those 3 weeks. And I've never looked back, and I've never regretted it. And I've ever.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a crazy story, right? And it's one that I didn't even tell for years. So it's funny that I'm talking about it to, everybody. But I sent everybody to him. And now, like, a lot of my friends, they don't have teeter-totter charts like I do. So basically I'd landed in the worst place in the world for me, and he sent me to the best place in the world for me, and there was nowhere else because I asked him about a lot of different places.
Yeah,
He said I
wow.
could potentially go to Iceland after 2020, 2018 or whatever. He said that Iceland wouldn't be too bad. It would be okay. Now I've since then, because my friends that have gone to him that didn't have such drastic experiences as I have found other relocations astrologers that do things slightly differently. But again, there you go to the interpretation and whatnot. But yeah, that's what got me to Australia was
Wow.
astrology. So
That's so crazy.
yeah,
I never knew that, Per.
yeah.
So that's the, so
Thanks for indulging in that. That probably took a lot more time than I had intended it to. So.
yeah, but that's, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a relocation astrologer.
Well, neither did I. And then all of a sudden it was in my lap 3 times in 2 weeks.
And what did he tell you like that made you say, what? I'm getting my words mumbled here. What did he tell you that made you so convinced that he was correct? Was he, or he outlined how accurate was he? Like, is it just basic story on your life, or like how?
No. It wasn't, I don't think, what he said about Australia that got me up and moving here, although that was,
No, before you,
but
before he
it
gave you
was,
the Australia thing, like
yeah, it was what he knew about my life in
yeah,
Vancouver.
how accurate was that? Like how close? What?
Bang on. Everything that he said was bang on.
So he couldn't have made it up. Like he couldn't have guessed it.
No, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. Like down to the only positive was I had a really good deal on an amazing apartment. I loved my apartment. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
And but even there, he was like, "You like your apartment, and you think you got a good deal on it." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I love where I live." And he said, "But outside," he's like, "it's noisy and dirty, and there's people swearing, and and from the day I moved in to this apartment, 3 apartments back to back did renovations on the alley behind me. So next door just finished one, and then this guy popped up, and then that one would be finished, and this guy popped up. Like you'd think they could have all done it at once, right?"
Yeah.
And then because I lived in a laneway, there's a lot of homeless people. So the shopping carts and the swearing and the drunks and everything like that. So there was always noise outside my apartment as much as I loved my apartment. And he saw
How
that.
could he know that?
I have no idea.
Wow, that's
These are the
so
things that I don't know. And he saw the kinds of like the personalities of the men that were getting attracted to me. He saw what my work life was like.
so can you so does that mean it's fixed? So it must mean it's fixed.
Well, it would imply that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because if that's in retrospect, could he have told you that before that? Before
Well,
it happened?
like there's a couple philosophies, like a couple theories that I've looked into since, where it's like I always wanted to come to Australia, and because I was so buried in not being happy with my life, I needed an outside something to tell me what I already knew inside, right? And so it was so clean for me. And because of the teeter-totter effect of my chart, like it was either all or nothing, whereas so many
Yeah.
other people have some good points and bad points in where they are, but mine was very much all or nothing. And the transits are all gone now. He only did the reading. He said the transits will be there till 2022. So I don't know what Australia holds now, but or Vancouver for that matter. But
Did he tell you anything else that's going to happen in your life that's come true, that you've manifested? Did you ask him for other things, or you didn't want to know?
No. It's not like he'll tell, like I don't think that they can tell you events, astrologers, but they can tell you the energy that's influencing you, right? So
But how did he be so accurate earlier on and not accurate later on in the future?
oh, he was accurate about Australia. He was, but that's not what got me to move here.
Yeah.
No, he definitely was. There was a couple of years of intern trying to figure it out, and I think that where the line was that he told me about, I didn't have the clarity to go, oh, I needed to be west of that to get everything, which when I came to Melbourne, I was actually west of it instead of being east of it, because east was just a teeny bit closer to Vancouver and harder. But now, like, he had been doing this and this actually goes into your next question. So this particular guy, like I said, there's a bunch of other ones that are doing it now too. This particular guy, it was his one and only career. Like he'd been in astrology his whole life, and he did live his life by the charts. So when I started talking to him, he was living in Washington State, or like Northern California or Washington State or something like that. And then months later, he moved into Oregon because he was following, like he lived by it.
Yeah, right.
Um,
And did he
100%.
find that well, he must have found that it's right, I suppose.
Well, it worked for him.
Yeah.
Like some of my friends, like a lot of my friends went to see him after seeing my situation. And some of them, like they all had, I think, good results, but not as profound as mine.
Maybe
Yeah.
because theirs was more open to interpretation, where yours was straight up and down.
Yeah, that, or, like you told one of my friends that, she was really financially supported and didn't have to worry about any of that. And her life was quite comfortable and yada, yada, yada. And this particular friend, she was very financially supported. She wasn't rich though.
Yeah.
Right. Far from it. Like it was hand to mouth, but financially things were easy. So the interpretation from my friend was like, well, I want more money.
Yeah.
And so he was right about that. But from the charts perspective, she wanted for nothing, which is what she did, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's how
Yeah.
you read it and who you are, and
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see. I've just got to try and work out what my birth time was.
Yeah.
And then Lucy's going to draw it up for me, and I'm a bit good because I don't want to have to manifest it. Like imagine if it's not good.
Well, no, it's not going to be like that. It's just going to be what influences do you have, and according to your chart, what are you here to do in this lifetime and stuff like that. It's not, hey, you're going to get a job in 2 years kind of stuff, right? I don't think when you do natal chart, that's what.
But it does beg the question now, like if they know so accurately your past, why can't they know more accurately your future?
Oh, well, they can. Okay, keep in mind, I'm not the biggest believer in astrology, so for me to tell that story is huge because it's a really profound astrological positive thing in my life.
Yeah.
I hate giving credit to astrology for it, but I can't not, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, when you get, I don't know, like Troy, you're gonna it's gonna be fun. Just do it and see. Like, you'll get to know yourself a little better and why you go this way and that way. I've never had a profound chart reading other than my Vedic astrology chart reading. That was more me than any Western one that I've had. But again, it just could have been the readers,
It is hard. It's going to be interesting to see to see what it says. Yeah, that's a crazy story though.
I know, right?
Yeah, and it told you whereabouts in Australia you had to live as well.
Yeah, it was East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Because there are ley lines, aren't there, around the globe? That because I've heard that it can, if you sleep on a ley line the wrong way or something, they can make you ill. Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah. It's like the Faraday thing, I think. I think it's like I don't know a lot about it. Oh God, because I've read so many things over the years and so many, there's so many avenues and things you can go down with all of this stuff. But like I was saying to Lucy, my thing is just I like it as simple as simple. Like I just want it. I don't need to know all that stuff. I don't need to know how the car was built. I just want to hop in and drive the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So it's sort of like, but yeah, I don't know. There's so many things to.
So what do you want out of getting your astrology chart done?
Oh no, I didn't. That wasn't my purpose. My purpose
you
was
want to pull the thread on it because it's come at you.
Yeah, my purpose was to for Lucy was to because she's a hypnotherapist, and I want people to know that your mind controls your body, and if you other people, Lucy doesn't like me to say that, but for hypnotherapist to work, you have to hand over your free will to the hypnotherapist and let them change your default mode.
Yeah, there's permissions given.
Yeah, you got to give them permission to them for them to do that.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, that's why I wouldn't do. I personally wouldn't do hypnotherapy because I don't think I could hand my brains over, because I don't want to.
You're still in control under hypnosis, right? You're still in
Well,
control of what you
I think
take
are
on.
and aren't.
Yeah. Like we're getting
Because
hypnotized all the time with the program, and like our
but
tea is
when you go to a hypnotherapy, like a fun thing, the like an event, and the hypnotherapist is out the front and he hypnotizes six or eight people or something, and they crow like
hypnosis
chickens and
entertainment. Yeah.
yeah, entertainment wise. But they actually, um, they're not they're doing it without knowing. Like he says something and they just start doing it. Like they don't even know why they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and so this is what
But
I'm saying with the mind.
yeah.
This is what I'm getting right back to is the mind. It's saying that if you don't take control of your mind, someone else will, or not necessarily someone else, but it could be a societal someone else, or it could be something in the thought form that comes in that controls you. And so, like, pardon?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so remember Martin Bryant, right? How he down in Tasmania and he shot up all those people, which was terrible, and that's how we got rid of all the guns in Australia.
Yeah.
And so pardon,
the
what was that?
psyop.
Yeah, they asked him and said, "Why did you do it?" And he said, "The voices in my head told me to do it." And so, and if you go and look at all these, they used to call them lunatics in the old days. 10 years ago when it used to be old days, but now it's, that, and they all would say about the voices in my head. And so I think the FEB, this is only a Troy thing, I don't know. I don't know. This is that they have some sort of tool. This is why I was getting down the road of the photon, that they know how to control it.
Yeah.
Is they got some sort of tool that can put out a thought form, and if you've got the right radio receiver, that you'll act on it and 100%. Then do something.
Yeah. I can give you the name of a book that was written by a guy that has found and removed transmitters from people's bodies. And they're
actual transmitters.
Yeah, and they're wired somehow, I don't know how, to your biology, because when he started removing them, they would all self-combust. So he started taking them apart in petri dishes full of the blood of the person, and he could start seeing inside them. And they would move away from his tools to try and take them. I got the name of the book. But I just heard about this the other day because
how do they get installed though? Like who puts it in there, or how does it get there?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other conversation that
that's a whole new podcast. We might have to go down that road, Pia.
No, we should make a note to talk about this because this is actually really fascinating. And I know when you and I talk about what we're going to talk about.
And the thing, just to interrupt you just for 1 minute, I don't mean to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like what I did with, and I spoke about it with Craig and Jeff, when I removed Craig's phobia of buttons and bobby pins, which he doesn't like me talking about, but for whatever reason he had them.
Yeah.
Through thought form, like I wasn't in the same room or anything. Like I was in Sydney at the time and he was living in Sydney, but Jeff was living in Queensland. He still is, and I'm in Sydney. And then I removed his fear of heights. Like me, I did it from home, like to see if it would work. And now, and he still to this day doesn't have a fear. And that was like that. I know because I spent a lot of years living with him, not living with him, but living in, we worked with each other. So I knew that he had these really bad heights. Like it was severe. And so if I can do that, Like what can someone do that knows what they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's becomes a whole new thing about the voodoo dolls and all these things, like that maybe all because we're all told, oh, that's all because it's in the movies, it's all wishy-washy.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be all real too. I don't know. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. This is what I don't
Totally
know.
the
It's such
truth.
a big like it's such a big topic. And this is what I
And
keep saying about this is why I'm doing this whole thing, right? Is about the mind, like the whole thing, but the become limitless community and the um, getting people into the best shape, both in mind and body, is because, well, we have to take control of the mind. And if we don't take control, well, if we allow someone else to control it, because we've got the free will which can block it out, I believe that I can't. So you can monitor your thought, and then you know that thought's not yours.
yeah, I think well, I wouldn't I don't call it the mind. I think there's a lot of things clapped with the mind and thought forms and stuff like that.
Mm.
I call it more your essence or your beingness. And because what you're talking about with distance healing and everything like that, right? And who can do it and the programming that goes on from a distance if people really know what they're doing and voodoo dolls and stuff like that. Like, you're back into the construct. I think what I'm hearing, you're back in the talking about the construct and that time and space are constructs as well, right? And when you take away time and space, it doesn't matter that they're up in Queensland, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It happened 2 years ago. People are still reliving their trauma every day if they haven't let go of it, right? And you can get rid of it instantly. Um, so the sun's doing something weird in my house. Sorry. Um, um, so um, there's that, and then there was another point that I wanted to make before the sun came in my eyes, but anyway, yeah, it's oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't really speak to it the mind. I talk about it being like our essence. So, we're borrowing, and I talked about this the other day. If we are in a construct, which I believe that we are, and we hypothetically say, okay, my spirit, my essence, the truth of who I am, whatever you want to call it, is just living in this rendering as this body right now. Um, if you're traumatized or unhealthy physically, mentally, emotionally, as we were talking about, then you start getting porous. Like you stop living in your body. Like your energy is outside of yourself. And I think we've all met those people where it's like they're not living in this. They're kind of living over here. They're living over here. They're not quite present to the world or whatever. And if you don't know where you are in time and space, then yeah, somebody else can jump in.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a crazy concept to think of, isn't it?
But if you go back to thinking of it in terms of being energy, it isn't, because if my energy isn't solid in this body, then it only stands to reason that there's space that needs to be taken up by something else,
Yeah.
right? And that tends to happen a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, so it all comes back to being in control of the mind. So I've
Well, yeah.
interrupted you with that book. What's the book?
Oh, okay. So this is the guy. I was listening to a podcast on this the other day from my favorite YouTuber, but it's speaking to just a lot of experimentation on humans and what we've been told that it is and what it isn't, right? With the alien abductions and is it alien abductions and what's actually going on. So that's what the topic of this thing was that I was looking at. And so the book is called The Aliens and the Scalpel.
All right.
And it was written by Dr. Roger Leir, Leir, The Aliens and the Scalpel. And he's a doctor that has actually pulled these little, they have some sort of energy or consciousness or awareness or something out of people's bodies, and he speaks to it in the book. Um, what he has done and seen. Yeah.
I don't want to ask any questions because it's
Because we're out of time and we're going to go into a
we're,
whole new.
we're going to go down. This is but I definitely want to find out about what he says about that.
Yeah, here I'll can put.
Yeah. So my thought, like we still haven't didn't even we we didn't even get off the topic of to the photon.
We
and
didn't get
light.
onto the photon. And
So
we're like 5 minutes left, Troy. I'm just
yes,
sending.
I know. And so we'll have to wind it up.
Yeah.
And so our, so our next topic, Pia, we,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about the book and the photon because the reason is uh, I just I really want people to realize that everything that we're being taught is to control us, is my belief, and that we have an incredible power in the mind that we can choose to use or not use.
Mhm.
And that it's a choice, you know, you don't have to use it. You don't have to, but at least I want to give you the option. I want to give people the option to say, to at least look into it, at least open a door to have a look at it and say if it is right or not, you
Yeah,
know?
I think that's an actually a really good place to end where we're at. Because how I look at that, Troy, with the programming. So yes, we live in a program, right? Because there's a lot of decoders out there of what it is. And we are programmable.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when we look at what's going on in the world, like there's been never been a time like now to see where we're programmable. Um, just on the division that's happened in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the medical tyranny and stuff like that. And so the people have been programmed about what this illness is and isn't and what to do
Yeah.
about it, not do about it. But then like I always invite people to look a little further and say, well, if they've programmed that, then what belief do you have that is just programming? Right. And this is why it's interesting that people always love to talk to me about God and the Bible, right? Because I'm like, well, there's thousands of ancient books, and there's one that we talk about. And I'm not saying it's a bad book, like the book, it's a great book, right? There's some fabulous stuff in there.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but but why are you willing to believe X but not Y? And
Yeah.
to start to question everything we've been told. Because I've discovered a whole new history, and I've discovered a whole new like I'm not programmable right now, right? Like and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
why
Breaking out of it.
yeah.
And
And,
it,
and so people get programmed about a lot of different things, even in thinking that they're not being programmed.
yeah. Well, yeah, all you have to look at is just to say, well, to ride a push bike, you've got to write a push bike program in. You know, you got you ride it for a while and then you learn how to ride it. And then you program that in. That's a program. And
Yep.
so that you can't unlearn it. Like you can't, once the program's in, you can't unlearn it. So you can't unlearn how to ride a push bike. And say if you want to drive a car, you know, it takes about 120 hours and then you learn to drive a car. And so you
120
learn,
hours. I didn't drive for 120 hours before I had my
yeah, well,
license.
that's, you know, that's what we're
That's your
told.
programming.
That's what we're told. That's what the kids have to do now, 120 hours, which is probably about right, you know, because you need to learn, have some good skills. And so that's a program, you know,
Mhm.
and we had to learn how to walk. That's a program. Like, so
Mhm.
if you just think of all the things that you do, if you brush your teeth in the morning, that's a program, you know,
Mhm.
where you put your toothbrush and then move it. And then
Yeah.
you'll go, oh, shit, where's my toothbrush?
Yeah.
You know, so, or yeah, you know, wherever all your brushes and stuff is, it'll be in the same drawer. So that'll be it. Everything's a program. So
Mhm.
we all run on programs.
Mhm.
So then you've got to think, well, what we're saying is that someone else can program it because we're
Mhm.
just a program.
Mhm.
This is what I'm saying.
And the easiest way to delete a program that I've discovered, which is super fast, is just to do the same thing differently. Right? So brush your teeth differently. If you always use your left hand, use your right hand.
Mm,
Right? It can be that simple. You can break pattern and break your own programming by just doing the same thing differently.
yeah. I suppose it's
We
like
can talk more
driving.
about that next time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big topic. So if you want to join our Become Limitless community, head over to freedomnetwork.io and there'll be a link there. Um, yeah, so thank you, Pia, for
Always a good chat.
another hour of wisdom. Geez, it goes so fast, and there's so many topics with the mind. It's just so deep. Look at the topic just on astrology, and we barely scratch it. And we're not even professionals
We didn't
in
even
that.
talk about astrology. We talked
Yeah,
around
we just
astrology.
talked around it, our perception of astrology.
Yeah.
So like when I
I'm not
start,
qualified to talk about astrology.
no, me neither. And so, but it's all to do with the mind and the program and like everything's interlinked, you know?
Mhm.
And so what it is just my whole idea with a podcast and with the Become Limitless community, and that is for us to get in the best shape of our life, which will automatically mean that you will start to question stuff in your mind because when you're both fit in mind and body, like it's very hard for someone to override that, you know? It's very, very hard. But when you're filled with anger and grief and guilt and your body's not in good shape and you're overweight and you're lazy and like it, then it's easily programmable. Like it's easy. Yeah. So that's the idea of it. Thanks very much if you made it right through to this end, and we hope that you'll listen to many more. We're trying to do 3 a week because uh, the time is near that we need to make the decisions. We don't. What's coming towards us doesn't have to happen. Like what's coming towards us hasn't happened yet, and it doesn't have to happen. So we have an opportunity now to change the world that we live in as a collective. Um, so if we all rise up together and we all get healthy and we all get a healthy mind, we all open up our minds to other possibilities and other thinkings. Yeah, the world can be a great place. So thanks very much and have a great day.
Thanks, Try.